Hello everyone, welcome back to Sky Academy College Counseling 101. It's great to see you all. This is your college counselor, and today we have a new topic to tackle. Today's topic will be about building a college list for those that are in high school. If you're a senior, you probably have a list already in applying. If you're not and you're a freshman, sophomore, and junior, it's very important to think about starting to list a college for yourself. This list can change, but it's important to start thinking about it, right? So how do I make a college list? You might be asking, wondering. So let's tackle that. Don't worry, I got you, and we're going to be able to solve that. Okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is why balanced list matters. The first thing that we have to do is we have to create a list of colleges, but it has to be balanced. What does this mean? You first start thinking about your interests, right? And your desired college of reach. For instance, you have a very high passion and goal. And if you feel that you are qualified for that, you put that into your list. However, then we want to sit down and evaluate, right, what other colleges can we put into those lists. So number one, there are two types of students. Type A applies to only Ivy Leagues and gets into those schools or not, but their chances are very slim, 5 to 10%, because Ivy Leagues are very prestigious. And number two applies to many schools, right, and tries to balance that out, and possibly even schools that are very close to them, right? Comfortability. Maybe they want to stay within the state that they're in. So it really matters on how you're going to look at this, and we want you guys to be the second type of student. So you want a list that's ambitious and realistic, okay? Something that stretches you but doesn't stress you out. We want to test your limits. We want to see potentials within the realm that you have, but we also don't want to stress you too much and put too much weight on a certain college. This does happen. There are students that have very high ambitions and wants for a certain college, and sometimes that can add a lot of weight to them. And I recommend people to be more cautious and not have too much, because college admissions is very sometimes subjective. Like, it depends on the admissions officer, and you could be the greatest student, but you might not get in because of your legal status or because of your finances. So being aware of these factors is important. And of course, having the eager and desire to go to a certain college, but not feeling so upset if it doesn't work out. So you want to be realistic, right? So let's talk about the categories. You guys probably heard about this if you're an experienced high school student. If you're not and you're new, I'm going to talk to you about three categories that we want to create when we're thinking about creating our list. So it's reach, match, and safety. So let's start off with reach. Reach schools are schools where your GPA and test score are below the average of what the school you're trying to get into, and the acceptance rate is about under 20%, right? A lot of the Ivy Leagues are meant to be reach schools for those that are specifically doing great. Sometimes a student might be doing not so great, and they might not even consider it as a possibility. But even if you're a great student, right, most of the times Ivy Leagues are reach. Because why? Their acceptance rates are pretty low. So if a school has like an acceptance rate of lower than 10%, then that's a school that probably is reach. Not just Ivies, beyond Ivy League schools that are in the top 20, right, can have percentages like that acceptance rates. So you want to be able to check that, and if that's the case, that's a reach school. So that's number one. Number two, match schools. So your academic stats really line up with these schools. Your probabilities of getting into this school is not too high, like not in the 80s, but not too low either, not in the 20s. So it's around, I'd say like a 50%, right, 60%. It's like a good likelihood that you will get into this school, maybe a little bit higher, like 65s possibly, but you still don't have a guarantee. So again, how would you know about this? You know about this by your academics and where you're proceeding. If you're someone that's, as I said, a freshman or a sophomore, you want to look at your current progress, your GPA currently, what kind of clubs and activities you're doing. You've probably taken the PSAT, right? Where does your PSAT score land? If you've actually taken the SAT as a junior, right? Where does your SAT score land? So what's your probabilities for that school? But that's the way you'll know, right, for these two categories so far. Is it a reach for you, or is it a match? And finally, safety schools. So these schools are where your GPA and school scores are well matched to get into the school. Most likely, it gives you an 80% chance, 90% chance to get into the school. Hypothetically speaking, your SAT might be like a 1400. The school requires 1100, and your GPA is a 4.0 unweighted, and their requirement is like a 3.2. So your chances of getting into that school are pretty high especially if you're in state too, right? So if you're in the state of New Jersey, and if you wanted to get into the School of Montclair, it's pretty acceptance rate is high. And I would say for many students, it could be a safety school. But for Rutgers, sometimes that could be like a match school for many students in New Jersey. And then Princeton, which is an Ivy League school, would be like a REIT school. So categorizing these three are very significant. And as I said, you want to do your research and find out, and that's very important. What I recommend with students when they're looking into colleges is make a list of colleges that they're interested in and have as many as they want, especially, as I said, if they're younger. But at first, you want to see what your probabilities are and possibilities are and what you're interested in, right? So for that reason, you want to sit down and think about certain factors. So there's 5 things I want you guys to consider. Number 1, think about location. Does that matter for you? Does it matter for your family members, right? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be close to where you were raised and born? Or do you want to explore? Or does that not matter at all, right? Location is a key question to ask yourself. I've had students in the past that have gone to Ivy Leagues, very prestigious high schools, and eventually felt very bummed out their first semester or year because of the campus environment. They didn't like how it was, and they weren't aware of it because they didn't go and visit the campus. So don't be someone like that. Know how you feel about the location. And also, I highly recommend visit those colleges, be aware of the campus, the environment. If you know an alumni, talk with the alumni, get insight from them, and that could help a lot. Number 2, size. Do you care about how big the school is? Some schools are humongous, like NYU, for instance. It has approximately 55,000 or above students. This encompasses undergrad, graduate school. So, do you want to be in a school that's that invasive, that big, right? So you want to ask yourself that. In contrast, a small school can be like an Ivy League school, a couple thousand students, right? So this can matter. So you want to ask yourself this, does this matter for you? Majors. Does the school that you want to go to offer the major that you want to go to? I recently was talking with a student. They want to do mechanical engineering, like a specific engineering field, or like construction engineering. Maybe some schools might not have those fields, or they might not be as good ranked. So you want to be able to ask yourself, am I willing to go to these colleges? And if does this college have the major that I want? And how good is it in that major? So definitely be able to answer that question too. Another very important topic, cost. Money matters, right? Money talks, and you want to be able to answer that question for yourself. Are you going to be able to pay tuition if you're going to an out-of-state school and if your aid isn't full ride, right? If you want to stay in state, right, get the benefit from being an in-state student, you want to keep these into consideration. Finances matter. So ask that to yourself, right? For instance, if you make a certain number, like income or below your family, you get free tuition on certain colleges, right? Ivy Leagues are known for this, and they usually give full rides to many students. So you want to be aware of this in any other local public schools or out-of-state schools. So this is very important. That's the 4th thing I would mention. And then finally, I would say culture, right? The school that you're going to, it has a culture within itself. How many years has it been existing? Researching that, going and seeing it, meeting people. Do you see yourself fit in that culture? See, colleges have like sports, right? And they're very known to sometimes some schools to be very successful in that. So when people, for instance, athletes choose certain colleges to play for, they choose based on the cultures and background of that school being very good in that sense. So you want to be able to know that as well. And if you're aware of that, that will make it easier for you to make your list and go over that. I highly recommend when you do make a list, talk with your mentors. If you have a mentor, talk with your school counselor, your college counselor, talk with your family members, and make a decision at the end that you're not going to regret. Sometimes students put colleges on their list that can be far away from where they are, and they don't really think about the possibility of going there at the moment, and they're like, I'll go, it'll be fine. And eventually when they decide to go there, they feel sometimes alone, they feel homesick. This happens. I've heard this a lot. So my recommendation is, rather than going through that whole hassle, sit down, evaluate for yourself, do your research, and when you're making the decision, try to think about the concepts that I talked about and which one matters for you the most, and make the decision of creating your list accordingly. The list is flexible. It could change. So don't worry about putting a college there that you might want to change in the future. That can happen. Unless you're a senior and you're applying now, then that's different. But if you're not a senior, then take your time, put colleges there, and eventually you could change that as well. So how much colleges would you want to put on your list? That's a great question if you guys are wondering. I would say approximately the average amount of colleges students have on their list is about 8 to 12, right? I usually recommend students to have 5 in each category, so 15. I'm not saying you're going to apply to 15 colleges. However, having that many on your list so you could see where you're at. And then eventually you can still apply to 15 colleges if you want. You know, if you have a fee waiver and you want to utilize that. If you don't have a fee waiver and you don't want to pay, then minimizing that to a certain amount of numbers. So I say, evaluate that accordingly, but on average, about 3 to possibly 5 colleges in each category could help a lot when you're considering what you're going to be doing with your college list, right? So all in all, I think that it's very significant and important to think about creating a college list, even if you're very early in your high school career. I talk with kids in high school that are freshmen, and I make them create their college lists. For instance, you guys can find the resources to create a list online. You could create this list on Naviance, Squire. You could do this on College Board, right? Search like the most recent rankings and datas of these schools, right? So definitely do this, because what it's going to enable for you to do is that I tell this to students. You can find a college. For instance, I was recently talking with a student and he's very interested in getting into Duke University in North Carolina. And we went over, right, Duke's requirements, Duke's expectations, and possibly arranging him internship opportunities there, summer programs there, right? Or just going down to North Carolina with his family and seeing how the Duke environment is, right? Or with his friends, whatever the case may be. But it gives you a way to be connected with those universities. And trust me, colleges will appreciate this. So if you have the time, the resource, the opportunity, create your list, go over it with people, and then start looking into opportunities where you could go and spend time with those colleges in the summers, in your free time, so that in the future, that can play a huge role for you in possibly getting accepted to those colleges, which is our hope. So all in all, thank you very much. Today we tackled how to create a college list. I appreciate all your time. And I'll see you guys next time on our episode of Sky Academy College Counseling 101. Chris,